Hi, this is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Welcome to my Star Atlas Week in Review podcast. This is podcast number 174. Any articles or videos mentioned can be found on my website at intergalacticherald.com. Just look for a weekly recap newsletter 222. Anyways, just a quick summary of things that happened this past week in Star Atlas. The Atlas Brew, the Star Atlas kind of community event, occurred on Wednesday, and then on Thursday there was a Lore Keepers meeting, but I think it was also the first playing of the RPG game, so I'm not sure. But if you're listening to this podcast, you've already received my AI summary, so you probably already know what it is. I haven't listened to it. So anyways, that was the big one, was the Atlas Brew. So I'll go over some details of that. But before I get to that, I just want to mention some things I'm working on in the Star Atlas ecosystem. So again, first is my website, intergalacticherald.com. It's a great resource website for things about Star Atlas, though I will completely admit it is totally outdated. It refers more to some of the current products as opposed to the new product coming out, the C4, that is right now in public testing. So it just doesn't make any sense to make content related to something that's a test. So, but again, if you want to play anything that currently exists from the Sage Star-based web browser economy game, or the UE5, or some of the other things that may or may not be interested to you in Star Atlas, you can check all that out. So it has guides, directories, recaps that you're listening to of news, and the Star Atlas Discord news announcement news feed. Sign up for that, and every time a team member posts in one of the announcement channels, you'll get an email for that. So anyways, also check out my Star Atlas merch store at intergalacticgear.com. You can take a look at that. And then I am interested in getting together with other Star Atlas gamers who aren't going to be joining guilds. So I want to create a community for us to hang out. You can check that out at intergalacticcoalition.com. So as I mentioned, this past week, main communication from the team was through their weekly Atlas Brew. Let's see. So they gave an update on the C4 PTR, which again is public test release realm, something like that. And they went over basically two updates related to two phases that they're going to be working on that are actually new features that are in the C4. So I'll kind of go over that. So the first phase, or I guess they said the second phase of features. So again, we'll call what was released phase 1, and then these are now new things. So one of the things they're looking to push out soon is what they're calling Combat V2. Also, again, apparently this is going to completely wipe the test environment to start over. But again, it's a test, so you don't have anything real in there. Anyways, so Combat V2, they said, was going to actually have variables that will affect the battles, so they're not just going to be a binary type of thing. And one of those effects will be stims that will be found through the cultivation claims. So definitely they're immediately giving these cultivation claims some unique resources, I guess. I don't know. They got raw materials, resources, consumables, whatever term they use. But anyways, so yeah, apparently these stims will affect battles. The other thing they mentioned was the Nemesis engine, which they've said it a couple times before, but I don't think I ever remember hearing a definition of what it is. But anyways, it turns out it's the thing that powers the AI NPCs within Holosim. So they're actually going to port that over into C4. And apparently the reason why is this will actually make NPCs available in C4. So it's not just going to be player versus player. They'll actually be NPCs, AI based, but I guess they're always AI based, even in the olden days before AI. I did note that maybe these NPCs will actually access resources, so I wasn't sure. Again, this is coming, so they were just talking about how they're developing it. So, but the one feature that was really intriguing, again, I guess Holosims had this, is that basically they'll be able to put enemies for player versus not player versus player, the other one, player versus everyone. So anyways, so you can go out and be attacked or attack someone. So yeah, and again, that sounds like a very interesting part of Holosim. So the fact that they can just take that and move it over is actually sounds really cool. I mean, that sounds like a game. I mean, you can still go off and look at other players, but again, kind of a single in my my mind, more of a single person type of thing. So they did mention that they were actually focusing more on getting these new features out than bugs, but they're not abandoning that. It was just, again, they wanted to get this because they're going to have to reset everything. So, and then they're actually trying to get in what has been talked about for a few weeks now, this diplomacy module. So they kind of went over a little bit, but again, they talked about it in a previous Atlas Brew, and I'm not opposed to it by any stretch. I just, whatever they said, and we'll just see what comes out. So, and I thought there was a fourth one, but I can't remember. But anyways, so those were some of the things they're talking about in this kind of next phase of the PTR. Then they switched gears and actually talking about a phase beyond that. And what they were really talking about was finally making crew, as they said, not just be a number count, but actually do something. So crew will actually have skills. I also mentioned an interesting thing, and I think this is one of the benefits of having their own blockchain, is that they'll move the crew from the current CFNC NFT. I'm sorry, it's been so many years, I can't remember. But there's some special NFT version that they did for the real crew. But anyways, they'll be able to import them over, and then that way they can control it. So they'll actually turn in from these I can't remember what it was. But anyways, they'll be able to make them unique. But the thing that this allows then, and again, apparently it always has been built into C4, crew places where crew would be involved, is now like crew can have missions. And this is where they can get experience points, and I thought they said level up. So it actually makes crew, what originally was the intent, possible. So again, it would be interesting to hear just a little more on the technical side, but again, it's a test, it's fine. I'm sure they'll explain all of this once they get the development over. So so that was kind of interesting. So those were the two phases and kind of what they were thinking of doing. They also mentioned as an aside that, this use of AI for their development, even though they're a much smaller team, has greatly multiplied their efforts. They mentioned I think it was a diplomacy feature, would have taken like their entire 25-person development team a couple months, and one guy, well, one of the founders, but still one guy, did it in a couple days. So cool. I mean, this is great. I mean, it's really great. And then they kind of ended up the Atlas Brew talking a little bit about UE5. They did note there were some delays in getting it launched to the latest version, but it was more with the Epic Game Store and just getting approved. Apparently there was some verbiage on their social media and website about gambling or something, so they just had to, had nothing to do with the game. It was more of how they're promoting it, I guess, or have promoted it. So they're hoping that will be something they can wrap up quickly. And then they did mention that UE5 is still continuing to develop, and again, I think it was mentioned the last Atlas Brew, one of the two, that it's pretty much one person, but it sounds like they're actually taking what has been worked on this single player and actually kind of showing some progression of there's a mission, and then it'll end up getting a claim stake, which you can then turn into a crafting hab or something. And I don't know, for the first time I was like, oh yeah, that sounds fun. So so that was great too. So, and then they ended kind of, I thought it was kind of funny. They joked that this was kind of a town hall with all the new information, but it truly was. I mean, this was a lot of new things that were coming out. So so if you want to listen to the whole thing, its entirety, Stardust TV's YouTube channel has a recording, which is what I just listened to. And if you're on my podcast feed, you already got my AI summary coming out from that. So, and I guess if we get the email newsletter, there's a small summary there too. So anyway, that was pretty much the Atlas Brew. Then on Thursday, Lore Keepers occurred. If you've been following me for a long time, I'm totally okay with lore. I just can't get into it. And started to realize part of it might just be time. I mean, you got to read and understand and make connections, and it's just tough. So anyways, but again, Stardust TV has a recording of that, and of course you might have already got my feed. So moving on to the next site, kind of thinking about State of Star Atlas this past week. So these are definitely interesting features being added to the PTR, so that's cool. And this is being almost too nitpicky, but I thought this was testing it, not building new things. And I'm just wildly speculating that maybe with both the AI development platform they're using so they can maximize each developer's time, that, there's nothing like any of these features would be bad to have in it. So total speculation that the original kind of 4 things in C4 were the natural progression from the previous one, but kind of like what the previous one is, it kind of gets boring after a while, just movement and supply chains where, again, diplomacy, combat, obviously, but better combat, having NPCs and missions, and then now even the crew. I mean, this feels like a fully fleshed out game mechanic. And again, if they can pull off the graphics, even if it is quote unquote browser based as opposed to UE5, again, it just gives people not have to have fast computers. So again, if this delays things, I mean, it makes sense. Or I also was speculating, I wonder if again the development of Zinc isn't where they need it to be, because they did mention that once they have a good indication of where the PTR is in the testing and the bug fixing, then they can set the clock for the Zinc, because that apparently already exists. I mean, that's what it's running on. So it's just, but getting the rollout of Zinc. So again, the development time is quicker. They can add new features. All these features are obviously game-like. So yeah, I think it's all okay in the end. So, and then the last thing, kind of both in the C4 with the NPCs, but even again a little bit in the UE5, yeah, that does seem to add something we just haven't had before, which I think is engagement and something you can do, can be single. Again, it doesn't take away from the larger scopes and things, or larger, supply chains and things like that, but it still just gives somebody, hey, I can go do this. And that, of course, sounds really interesting. And again, even if they can do that in the UE5, yeah, I think that's really great. So yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on this past week in Star Atlas. My journey, I'm still playing the Sage game, still mining, and I've totally forgot what I'm mining. I think I need like 50 million of them, and maybe I got 10. So it's just making sure my automation just keeps going. So I have been thinking more and more about the PTR, and it's just a question of having time to get into it. So United States, we have a July 4th, Independence Day holiday coming up. So I was thinking, maybe that might be a time to get a couple hours into it or something like that. So anyways, yep, that's it on my journey. And again, time to wrap up. Again, totally open. If anybody wants to be a guest on this podcast, please reach out. You can go to my website, intergalacticherald.com, or message me on Discord. If you're on the website, again, all the information, if you're much more of a beginner and totally overwhelmed, but heard about Star Atlas and you want to kind of figure things out, I still think the content's good for that, but definitely not in the current stuff. Remember if I had any HoloSim, but that's been kind of put on hold while they're doing the C4 testing. Again, do check out my merch store, intergalacticgear.com. And again, if you want to reach out to kind of be a founding member of a Star Atlas community, again, a non-guild, please check out intergalacticcoalition.com. And that's it for this past week in Star Atlas. I'm Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Have a great week ahead.